Okay, Eileen, you are live.
Okay.
I will share the screen in just a moment.
Actually, I'm going to take this off. Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for taking time out of what is a pretty nice Friday out there today to join us. We have a lot to discuss in terms of the tremendous progress Hillman Garage has made, where we are have our approvals and are ready to move forward, the parking and mobility efforts that are underway, and the messaging campaign that we hope all of you will participate in. We are delighted this afternoon to have Senator Elfreth with us, Alderwoman Tierney, the city manager, David Gerald, the AMRP team, Ivan Doolin, Bryce Turner, Drew Lewis. From SP Plus, we have John Kemp and Kevin Weintz. In the city, we have our Public Works Director, Michael Johnson. I think Lisa Greco is on the call. Hope Stewart from Economic Development. So we have the entire public-private partnership here today to hopefully give you a lot of information, but more importantly, answer your questions and absorb all of your ideas and your recommendations. I'd like to start off by asking first Senator Elfreth and then Alderwoman Tierney if they have any comments for the group.
Thank you so much, Eileen, and thank you for inviting me here today. I feel like I'm just the big cheerleader in the room. We did our work at the state level to pass the Resilience Authority. That's the vehicle for funding this major infrastructure project. We continue to invest state funds, 1.4 million last year alone, and around $1 million a year in state funds to address sea level rise, both on Compromise Street and on this side of the project. And we will continue to fight for those state funds and bring those home from an economic development perspective, but also from an emergency management perspective. And I think we all experienced with the flood around Halloween that this project can't come soon enough. Really pleased that there's no injuries in that flood, despite it being the fourth highest on record, and that hopefully we're still sorting that out, but hopefully the damage done to many of the small businesses around City Dock and in Eastport was relatively minimal, and we were able to invest some state funding through the county's Economic Development Corporation in mini grants to those businesses to help with flood remediation. But frankly, I'm really excited for us to not have to do that after this project is completed. That if we put the work in at the front end and build the infrastructure, when we do experience more and more of these floods, that we are better prepared moving forward. So I'm here as a resource. We are going into special session in December and then regular session in January. I will continue to fight for those budget funds and for whatever else this community needs, not just for this project, which is essential, but also most importantly, to make sure our community has all the resources we need as the seas continue to rise. So thank you, Eileen.
Thank you so much. Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Senator Elfreth. As you can all see, we are really in good hands. I am very excited to not only represent the residents in Ward 1, but to represent the businesses that are an integral part of our economic fabric. And as I've always said, based on my experience, 30 years in construction, pre-development, pre-construction, if you get it right, you've got a very successful project. And so far, we're headed in the right direction. You have a team of experts, and they've worked enormously hard to present a plan. And I hope you feel the same way after this presentation, and we'll continue the dialogue. Thank you again.
Thanks, Ellie. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, who has really been shepherding all of this through. David.
Well, thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Senator Elfreth and Alderwoman Tierney for coming today. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We're very excited about this project. As the slide that you can see now indicates, This is an urgent project. It needs to be completed. The last few days of October really previewed what we're looking forward to in the future if we don't address sea level rise down at CDAC. So this is an urgent project. As well, the condition of Hillman Garage also lends urgency to this project. So clearly we need to move forward. So next slide, please. So over this past year, we've been in what we call the study period in design. So the first and most important thing that we had to do was a feasibility study to determine whether the garage, building a new garage was actually feasible and would pencil out financially. The good news is last summer, based on the feasibility study that AMRP did, we found that it is feasible and that we're able to move forward. Again, that's kind of old news because that was from last summer, but that was a very important part of this project. So it's 590 spaces, the garages, that's what's feasible. That also is what's right size for the site. So we're not gonna have to go into the ground. We're not gonna exceed the height limitation that we have for the site. We're able to add 165 additional parking spots within essentially the same footprint that we have for Hillman Garage. So that was a really good outcome for the design. We're beginning the detailed design process now for CDAC because the design for the garage is wrapping up with the start of construction next spring. And we've also fine-tuned the mobility strategy, which we're going to talk about a lot today. Next slide, please. So we had 4 meetings with the Historic Preservation Commission. That's a bit unusual to have that many, but this is such an important project that we went back 4 times. They gave us great feedback at each of the meetings that we had. And back in July, they basically approved the schematic design, the design for the aesthetics of the garage, which will allow us to move forward. So next slide, please. We also met with the Planning Commission. We met 3 times with them. Again, they had a lot of good feedback that we incorporated into the design. The project is going to be better because of the input that we got from both HPC and the Planning Commission. So we appreciate the attention that they gave this project, the focus that they gave it, and the recommendations that they provided to the design team. As a result, the Planning Commission approved the garage site plan. So we're ready to start construction in February. So I will hand it back to Eileen. That's where we've come over the last year. It's been a lot of work. We've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of different people and a lot of different entities, and we really appreciate that. And if you have feedback, continue to provide that to us, please. So Eileen?
Thanks so much. This slide is one you've seen before, but it's all the meetings, many of which we have had with all of you in the past several months. Just yesterday, we had a meeting that Joe Rubino from our business community helped put together for the businesses that back up to Gorman Street to talk about staging. And the reason I bring that up is it's critical that all of you continue to be as involved as you have been throughout the process, because without your efforts and without your involvement, we will not succeed. So the main message is let's continue this, and thank you so much. Next slide, please. Right now, with Hillman Garage being ready to be demolished in February, early February, the city is looking at a strategic approach, and that approach means in concert with both the business and the residential community. The approach involves parking options for each user group, making sure that we get our customers downtown, that our residents can park in their neighborhoods, and we have our employees and our other visitors in the right locations. a mobility plan, which is very unique. I'll share the pictures in just a couple minutes. And then a messaging campaign where the city has brought on 2 marketing and messaging firms, one to do the creative work, but the other to get the message out. And that will involve all of you as well to make sure people know Annapolis is open for business. Next slide, please. We have a tremendous amount of parking. These parking garages you see there are over 3,000 spaces. The issue is to make sure we get the right users into the right locations, that we get the people that need to be close into downtown, in downtown, and the people that don't need to be, that we get them in Park Place and the garages that are a little bit further out. Next slide, please. So toward that effort, the first action that the city has taken is to relocate all of the Hillman garage parkers. There are 120 municipal staff and city vehicles that will be going to Park Place. There'll be increased shuttle service during rush hour in particular, and there'll be free service, but 120 parkers will be out of our downtown. Then there are an additional 128 monthly pass holders who will go to Gott's and Knighton Garage. So when you think about, as downtown businesses, when you think about what is the shortage with Hillman Garage coming down, it's really about 200 spaces that are used for transient or visitor parking. In the close-in garages, and again, this is just the garages downtown, we have more than 300 spaces available. We now just have to put people and get messaging out so they know where to go. Next slide, please. Of course, the priority for our closer in garages should be our customers. Messaging so that they know where to go. In Gott's alone, after we take out the monthly pass holders and everyone else, we have 250 available spaces. We've got additional spaces at Whitmore, Bladen, Donner, South Street, and of course, City Dock, on-street parking, and the city is planning on adding valet parking for your customers. Visitors, the biggest issue is going to be messaging. And by messaging, whether that be through apps, through the kinds of message you all can put out on your website or to your customers, and signage so that they know that they can be captured is not the word we would use for them, but that they can park for free at Park Place. There's a free shuttle with 10-minute headways. There will also be what we call on-demand service through VIA, which is a national firm, microtransit firm, and that VIA will have their own app so that people will be able to call for service. And there is extensive weekend and evening parking available very close in with Gott's, Whitmore, and Bladen. Next slide. Then come our employees and all of you. I think the important piece here is there may be some business owners or employees that need to be close in, and there certainly is availability. But again, you want to use, we together, the business community, residents, and the city want to make sure that those close-in garages are available for your customers. There can be arrangements, both public and private. We have John Kemp from SP Plus on the line, and he'll be glad to answer any questions about monthly parking arrangements that are available through all the garages. We also have had conversations with Sam Medeo, who manages 80 spaces at the Graduate Hotel. I will not quote numbers from Sam, but the numbers he gave me were very, very affordable in terms of making arrangement. And again, there is going to be free parking for your employees, certainly not evening restaurant workers, but daytime employees to park at Park Place and then have on-demand free service with Via or the shuttle. Separately, the city is looking at options for restaurant employees, particularly people that get off late at night and have a lot of money on them. Next slide, please. So it's one thing to direct people to the right place to park, but then to move people around, there are going to be three modes. The first is the circulator. The circulator will be enhanced. There'll be an additional circulator so that we can make 10-minute headway times, particularly during rush hour for the commute, both in the morning and in the afternoon. The city is looking at a 10-minute trolley loop, and that is, you've seen these downtown, the large golf carts where people will be able to get on at the closer in garages, and there'll be an ongoing loop to bring them right downtown. And then the on-demand service, which will be very unique for a city this size. Larger cities all over the country have this. The national provider with whom we are working is Via, and they will provide the micro transit. We have an image of one of these buses in a few minutes. The micro transit will hold 6 people. They will do 2 things. They will be on demand, particularly on weekends and evenings when the shuttle is not nearly as accessible. And it'll provide people a real opportunity to have very convenient access to our downtown. So with that introduction, next slide, please. I am going to turn this over to Ivan to talk about the details of parking and moving around, and then Bryce. And then we want to end up with some of the images from our marketing firm. And then we will kick off our discussion with all of you with some comments from Joe Rubino. Thank you. Ivan?
Thank you, Eileen, and I appreciate the ability to come and present and provide an update on Hillman Garage and the parking and mobility plan that we have in place for the construction period. We are really excited about the project and really pleased with how the development process has moved forward, and a lot of the great feedback that we have gotten through the wider community, as well as the HBC and Planning Commission. And I think we're very pleased with the design and how things have progressed. So if we can jump to the next slide. What I wanted to do is first give a little bit of an overview over, as Eileen mentioned, what the plan is for current city employees and pass holders, which form the majority of the users of Hillman during the peak period, which is normal weekday working hours. Then talk a little bit about kind of what existing capacity will look like during the construction period for other garages, publicly owned garages in the area. Then talk a little bit about kind of after Hillman is completed and the CDAC project has been completed, what it means for the overall off-street parking count for the downtown area, and then move to probably is a little bit more exciting, which is the actual design of the Hillman Garage, and Bryce will provide an overview of how that is developed and the final design that's been approved. So with that, if we can jump to the next slide. So as I'm sure a lot of people are aware, the current Hillman Garage is 425 spaces. Between monthly pass holders and city employees or city passes, actually make up the majority of the users on any given day during the weekday peak period. So that is your kind of 9 to 5 office hours is when the average pressure in the garage is highest, and that is driven by folks that are using the garage for parking or related to work hours. To relocate those users, as Eileen mentioned, we're taking a kind of two-pronged approach. The city employees will be moved out to Park Place, and the current monthly pass holders will be afforded an option of to relocate either to GOTS or Knighton. Our assumption is that most people will prefer to move to GOTS, but there could be some that through either office relocation or other reasons would prefer to be at Knighton instead. So that's why we're providing that that option. We'll be providing that optionality to the extent that we can. If everybody would like to go to GOTS, there could be the need to move some over to still move some over to Knighton, but we believe between the two options, we will have pretty decent coverage. After the monthly pass holders are moved to GOTS, and we're assuming again the majority will move to GOTS as opposed to Knighton, GOTS would still have about 50% of their spaces available during the weekday peak period. So more than half, or about half the garage would be available for what we're calling transient users, effectively visitors that are in town or non-frequent users of the garage. And for Knighton, that number would be around 40%. So still a pretty substantial capacity at what is for each garage at what is, again, the peak period. As you'll see to the right, this is the Circulator route. As Eileen mentioned, the Circulator service will be expanded. And the key driver of that is actually not moving users over to GOTS so much as it is that the city employees will all be moved out to Park Place. So what will happen is there will be an increased service frequency of the Circulator to account for that fact. And that will not only be a benefit to the parkers at Park Place, but also the other stops along the route. So you'll see increased number of vehicles for the Circulator and a decreased headway. If we can jump to the next slide. So speaking of transient users or visitors or short-term users, effectively the visitors or parkers who come in for kind of shorter periods of times or maybe a couple of days that don't have a monthly pass. That's really what we mean when it comes to we're using the term transient users. There are, as it should be noted, several publicly owned garages and parking options available within 10 to 12 minute walking distance from Hillman. So setting Hillman kind of as a center within kind of half a mile or so, there is a pretty substantial amount of available garage parking in addition to other on-street parking and city lots. That means that even while Hillman is offline, there is capacity to absorb the existing transient user base, if you would, into these other garages. So as Eileen mentioned, part of the key is making sure that people are aware of kind of where to go and that there is a system to move people around. I'll talk a little bit about that here in a bit when it comes to the on-demand service in particular. In addition to the public garages, there are city lots and private garages, be that the Graduate Hotel, as Eileen mentioned, and other hotels with private parking garages, in addition to city dock and other city lots and on-street parking. So in the numbers that you see on the table to the right here, a couple of key items that I would like to highlight. One is, as I mentioned, the peak period is again that weekday peak. So the 9 to 5 kind of working hours is when the garages have the most pressure. Even when Hillman goes offline, you'll see that there's still a capacity to absorb those transient users that wouldn't be moved to Gosser Park Place in the other garages. And again, these numbers are just looking at the publicly owned garages, not on-street parking, not city lots, and not private garages. The other thing that's worth noting in particular is when it comes to weekday evening and weekend, there is, again, on average, so I'm not talking about the height of the summer and when, for example, the boat show is up, but the average weekday, which is what we've used to look at what are the correct options when it comes to mobility services to right size the baseline. There is more than sufficient capacity within that 10, 12 minute walking distance, which is kind of the key for a lot of transient users who are coming to town to visit Annapolis, to go out to dinner, to visit for the day. It should also be noted that the traditional weekday peak period, and again, these are historical kind of average capacity numbers, that weekday peak period that has been where there's been the least available capacity, that is also the period of time which we see most impacted by the change in work patterns through COVID-19 with additional work from home. So that pressure has also been reduced. So if we can jump to the next slide. So to supplement the increased circulator, one of the things that we've mentioned before that will be a part of this project is a pilot program related to an on-demand service or on-demand transit system. So Annapolis On Demand will be a program run by VIA with smaller kind of shuttle buses or vans. One of the reasons why why this approach fits very well for the area is what we're trying to do is reduce demand for parking within the downtown area while Hillman is being constructed. So, and one of the ways to reduce demand is effectively to reduce single person vehicle trips within this area. And that's where this type of smaller transit type shuttle system works very well. So it will supplement the Circulator, which is focused on bringing people from garages to the downtown and city dock area. The on-demand service will supplement that by servicing kind of a wider area, but a defined area. For example, as you see here on the screen, shaded in gray on the map, it will provide pickup points, so not door to door, but kind of street corner to street corner. So there will be a slight, a short distance walk to get on board the shuttle, and there could be one of the things that the service would do is aggregate trips within that. So if a lot of people are going in the same direction, there'll be 2 or 3 people in the vehicle. So that will provide a very fast and convenient option, and it will also provide an option that's more sustainable than just running a fixed route. So the vehicles won't be going from point A to point B or circling a route unless they're called for. So which reduces greenhouse emissions associated with the transit service. We're looking at within this area around wait times of about 10 minutes or less. That's what we're structuring the system for, to make it an attractive alternative to taking a personal vehicle and contributing to parking pressure within the service area. And as mentioned previously, there will be an app, that where users can book travel. That will be kind of branded an Annapolis mobility branded app. And there'll also be the possibility of booking via phone. So we see this as kind of an initial pilot program that enables the city to implement kind of an innovative and forward-leaning approach to transit service. So if we can jump to the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit more about messaging here in a bit, but I did wanted to mention there are a couple of different things to keep in mind of kind of messaging and tools of how we approach different user groups. We're going to be very focused on kind of the short term as the garage comes down to make sure that any confusion or assumption that Hillman garage is available is reduced. So that includes removing street signs and directions to Hillman, providing updated data to third-party databases so that wayfinding apps don't direct people to an option that's not operational. As we'll talk about in a bit, updating of city websites and informations, and making sure that information package is pushed out through different communications channels. And then long-term, it's making sure that we then integrate signage for the new Hillman garage and signage around City Dock in the downtown area to make it easy for unfamiliar users to find their way to the new garage with its increased capacity. So if we can jump to the next slide, looking ahead and kind of we talked a lot about kind of this interim step, but what we're really doing here is kind of looking how will the world look like when these projects are complete, and what is the benefit of both projects. And one of the key benefits here is increased overall parking inventory between the Hillman garage as well as the coming City Dock resiliency project. So there'll be an increase in off-street parking. We want to move people to off-street parking options to simplify parking for visitors, to reduce circling around neighborhoods and things of that nature, and to free up city streetscape as well. So the new Hillman garage will have roughly 165 additional spaces, so with just one added floor, and we're able to do that through the design, which Bryce will talk about here in a second. There will be a reduced amount of parking spaces at City Dock, but there will still be, between the two projects, a net increase in parking, and that's important to emphasize. Even though there will be fewer spaces at City Dock, within the downtown area, there'll be a net increase in parking spaces of 40 to 50 spaces, which is not insubstantial for the area. And neither of these projects impact the amount of on-street spaces available as well. So that's important to note. So with that, if we can jump to the next slide. And I'll hand it over to Bryce to provide an update on the design that we've landed on through a lot of good cooperation with the city staff, with the community, and the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Commission. So Bryce, over to you.
Thanks, Ivan. Good to see everyone this afternoon. We're very excited about the progress that we've made with Hillman. and so that we can start turning more attention to city dock design and engineering, really. But as Ivan said, we've received approval from the Historic Preservation Commission as well as the Planning Commission. We're pleased about that. There was a lot of excellent input. I think a lot of discussion about it. It shows the importance and the care that people really have for this public facility. And I'm really excited about some of the things that came out of it. I think some very forward-looking components for a parking garage, because we have to think about the future of these parking garages and what it means, 20 years from now for this facility. So if we can get to the next slide, we'll jump into a little bit more of the detail. The 590 spaces that this garage will incorporate when it is rebuilt, we'll have that 165 car surplus in addition to what is there today, and that will accommodate the cars lost at City Dock once that is complete, as Ivan mentioned. So it's exciting that there'll be plenty of parking in downtown. We have gateless entry and exits from this garage on Gorman Street, as you see here in these images, as well as Duke of Gloucester Street. And we think we have improved entry and exit conditions. But some of the components I'm most excited about are the photovoltaic solar panels that will create a canopy on the top level, which you'll see in a few minutes. The electric vehicle charging stations, bike racks, and this idea of being able to adaptively reuse this ground level if necessary in the future, but more importantly, to activate Gorman Street in the short term on weekends and times when the garage is not full. So next slide, please. Aerial view, and I want to go through a couple of these quickly, but we are getting some nice new landscaping on Gorman Street. We have new trees, new tree pits, and they are state-of-the-art, such that we'll be able to really count on getting good tree growth there, which is important, as well as a brick sidewalk along Gorman Street, which will be expanded. The footprint of the garage is actually a little bit smaller than the current footprint. There will be a continuous walkway around the building that will be well lit as well for safety. Next slide. A couple aerial views. If you were in a helicopter, you would see it like this, but it does help to get a comprehensive view of the entire facility as proposed. You see our solar canopy on the top level. So that top deck, which is usually open to the elements, here will be covered, which will be helpful, and it'll be solar panels. They'll be also creating electricity, of course. We are lighting this upper level on the underside of that canopy, but also with some string lights that you can just very slightly see in this image, which is small lights that will shine down and will have some protection so that there's a cutoff so that there's less glare when you're looking at it in this kind of an angle. But we think that will provide a soft type lighting that will be very interesting and potentially create an opportunity for people to use the rooftop in other ways. The design of this facility is largely the brick facades that you see here. They've been proportioned to certainly recall the design, the historic design of our Main Street and other parts of historic Annapolis, and yet it is very modern still in its approach. The garage is mostly open, which allows for proper ventilation, and we do not have to mechanically ventilate it, which I think would be not only costly, but probably less healthy. So the garage is more than 50% open, which is a good thing. And at some point, some of the good input we got from the Historic Preservation Commission, as well as the Planning Commission, was to consider using some lighter materials near the top of the building, especially to actually expand the solar canopy and make it even larger, and also to create a very open condition along Gorman Street, which we've done. Next slide, please. And so as we look down Gorman Street, this is the way you'll really experience the new Hillman garage at street level. You tend to get these very oblique views, which the design is really intended for. The metal fins that you see there are these vertical metal fins that actually help to block your view to some extent of cars inside. We have a precast, or rather a concrete panels there that will block car headlights as well. But then you get the brick facade elements that occur at the entry and the exit and along the midway spot here on Gorman Street. And you start to see some of the lighting that we're applying to the columns and the piers of the building. It's an architectural lighting that is a backlit type thing, so it'll shine onto the brick, not be very glary, but create a nice atmosphere, I think, along Gorman that will be complemented by the city light pole standards that are on the right that you see there. Next slide, please. And then looking the other direction down Gorman Street, I think you can see that the building is very much more of a traditional architectural form as opposed to the current Hillman garage, which is, you know, rather unusual and obviously hasn't weathered well. But we think that this building would be very attractive and welcoming to people as you enter the stairwell at this end of the building or the exiting out of the garage. The elevators are located at the far end of the building and coupled with elevators. One of the things that you'll see in the next couple of images is we were asked by HPC and the Planning Commission to really try to green up the building as much as possible. And if you can continue to the next image, please, Ivan. This is the view from Duke of Gloucester Street. And so this entry condition we think is much better. The one thing that was not approved by the Planning Commission, I'll mention, is the no Hillman garage signage there. That actually will be redone. That's going to go away and will be handled differently. And we haven't updated that rendering yet, but this will be more on grade and kind of a straight shot into the second level of the garage rather than going down to the lowest level of the garage. And we think it's a much better condition. There also will be ample sidewalk space to get in and out of the garage for pedestrians and bicycles for that matter. Next image. This is kind of a nighttime view of Gorman Street, where we think there's an opportunity to take these string lights across the road as well. And we're looking at how we can add that with probably some poles to support the string lights, or maybe attach them to some of the existing poles that are there. But we think it would create a nice atmosphere here in addition to the architectural lighting on the building. And we'll make this ground level very usable because it is at grade with the adjacent sidewalk and the street. So it's a relatively easy environment to traverse for pedestrians. Next slide. In City Dock, of course, and Ivan may want to speak to this some more, but now we've really turned our attention to City Dock. We haven't dropped it by any means along the way. There's been a lot of progress made in studying flood elevations and heights that we're working on methods of combating flooding by creating, of course, barriers to that flooding. And our green park will handle a lot of that for us, which we think is a very clever way to address that rising seas in a way that also adds to the greening up City Dock, which we think is great. Portions of this will be floodable and will be allowed to flood, such as the very end of the dock at Susan Campbell Park. We also have, in a similar situation, which will happen at 110 Compromise Street, where we're also greening that up with some additional landscaping, which is going to be a real benefit, I believe. And so we're now really turning our attention to this. The pump house is being designed. We're looking at a water fountain, a bubbling fountain that'll be just below the pump house. And of course, Burtis House and other components will play into this as well and be adjacent to the green park. here at City Dock. So we're very excited about it, and we're all very busy moving forward. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Bryce. Next slide, please. I want to, and I hope everybody's as excited as we are when you think about how amazing it is that all of this has taken place with your help, really starting this past winter. I want to very quickly just give you a couple of images, and the full messaging presentation will be on the city's YouTube within the next couple days. Next slide, please. So in telling the story from a messaging standpoint, there really are two stages. What will be, actually, it'll be December and January. Next slide, please, where we need to get the message out that we have a plan to move people around, that Annapolis will be open and we're going to move you around easily. Next slide, please. The message then from February, when the garage is under construction forward, is, next slide, please, straightforward. The city garage is being renovated. Here is where we want you to park. We are open. Here are the best ways to get around. And the new garage and our downtown is going to be amazing. Next slide, please. The message about the garage is that it is really a gateway. Next slide, please. That it's a way to make it easier for all of you, our customers, our visitors, to have access to what makes downtown so exciting. Next slide, please. These are some of the symbols and some of the images that would go out on how you can get around using the valet, try on demand, colorful, bright, and exciting. Next slide, please. Here's to take the trolley. Next slide, please. Heading downtown, try on demand. Next slide, please. This is whether it's the platypus or whatever it is called. This will be the via micro transit. Next slide, please. We will also have, web pages to make people understand downtown is open for business. Next slide, please. And this is just one of the many images that Dharma has created to put the message out there that Annapolis is about many things. It's musical, it's nautical, it's about fine dining and ice cream, it's historic. I've never understood the peaceful one, but I guess peaceful meditation by the water. So these will be the images that we'll be looking to you to help us get out there. Next slide. Thank you so much. Let's go back to the pretty messaging one, and I want to kick off your questions. Again, we are here till 2:30 to answer as many questions as you would like. I want to kick this off with Joe Rubino, if he is still on the call.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Eileen. Yeah, thanks for the update on the garage and the opportunity. I know, I think this is the third meeting I'm aware of this week. You all have done the various business groups and constituencies. Any big project, there's always a lot of excitement, but also some angst. And I appreciate the time to dialogue. I know you and Dave had reached out to those of us at property that butt up against Gorman Street in the garage, so we can know exactly what the backs of our buildings are going to look like during construction. So I appreciate the time I thought you all have put into the dialoguing with us on that. I see there's a bunch of folks online. I think this is a healthy dialogue to keep up. I think there's folks that are online from way back in the City Dock Advisory Committee and the businesses that we had collectively called in from immediately around the City Dock, and I think some others I know around the city are listening in. So I think this is a healthy dialogue. And like I said, I know you're reaching out to citizens and others and the wards, but particularly I think 3 meetings this week for various business constituencies. So I think that's a good thing. I appreciate that dialogue. With any major construction project, there'll be unforeseens down the road. And I think this is a healthy thing to keep up and look forward to the dialogue. I get that the city, the parking garage is pretty well locked in at this point, and appreciate that update. I think there's some issues probably still coming down the road. I know you're in design and resolving some things. The city dock little pieces are still a work in progress. So I'm sure we'll keep the dialogue up there. And I think that's a good thing. So I appreciate the city and particularly Dave Gerald and Eileen, you guys keeping the dialogue open for us. That's all I have.
Thanks so much, Joe. Now I am looking for people to raise their hands to see if we have some questions. Do we have any hands raised? I know you have questions. Okay. I do not yet see any hands. Let's see.
So in case anyone's trying to figure that out, there's a little digital hand at the bottom of your screen that, here we go. Yeah, we've got a couple people popping on.
Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, let's see.
Michelle, followed by Harvey, followed by Kathy Davis. Michelle first.
I just had a quick question, actually from my staff. I'm the owner of Preserve on Main Street. They were wondering if the state garage on Calvert Street will continue to be free for evening and weekend parking for those workers that work at night, or if that plan is changing. I did see some of the great options that you guys have provided in the material presented, but I just wanted to, they had that specific question and I wanted to put that to the group. Thank you.
Great. Let me ask, I guess, David Gerald, or would it be John Kemp? David Gerald.
Yes, it still will be available on weekends and evenings for free. So the conditions for the state garage are not going to change. So whatever is offered now for free will still be during the project.
And John, do you want to follow up on Michelle's comment just in terms of the what's available or how people would get to you to find out what's available for monthly parkers?
Sure. Yep. If you go to Annapolis Parking, and this goes for anybody, if you go to AnnapolisParking.com, all the contact information for our office is there. Any voicemail you leave, obviously, if you call us and we're there during business hours, we'll answer and walk you through anything at that point. But any voicemail that's left or email that is sent is broadcast to our entire team. So we'll be sure to get back to you with any questions, with any answers to any questions.
Thank you so much. And then one small follow-up question. Outside of the evening parking, I think it's like after 6 and the weekends, is there any other opportunities for more affordable parking starting, around 4 or 5 in the afternoon for my PM staff? That was one other text message I forgot to kind of piggyback on that first question. That would be my last question. Thank you.
Yes, there is. There's a program in place currently at Gott's Garage, and there's an ongoing program at Park Place, but it sounds like also Park Place may be fully discounted during business hours once the project kicks off, if I heard that correctly. So again, there are programs specifically for that later in the afternoon entry time case for your folks at Gott's Garage today. And that information's at AnnapolisParking.com, or give us a call, send us an email, and we'll get you sorted out.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'll pass it on to the team.
And Michelle, we the city are the city manager is looking, but it's at the early stages into seeing whether there is anywhere the city can have an arrangement with parking that is very close in downtown for the late night employees. Next question, I'm not sure if this is Harvey, but it's HB Properties. Do we have HB Properties on, Harvey?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Harvey.
Okay, good. I wonder if the city might consider either all the time or during certain times to maybe give free parking to encourage more people to come downtown now, whereas they didn't have to pay. It might be an investment out of the city, but it would certainly help the merchants considerably more of getting customers that might not want to come because of the inconvenience.
David, do you want to say anything or do you want me to answer that?
So Harvey, what we're considering is, or what we're planning for is to give free parking at a Park Place, and then they would be able to use the shuttle to get downtown. I know that's not terribly convenient. We haven't looked at our pricing strategy yet. We're going to put that together next week to look at all of our parking assets and how they should be priced. So we'll certainly consider that, but we know that right now Park Place is going to be free.
Well, let me say this to you, that this is a program that went in effect many years ago. It's not in effect today, but it did when they were trying to build up business in West Palm Beach, and they gave free parking in the public parking lots. The city did for quite some time, and it brought a lot of extra business. Local people who would not normally come downtown a lot, it brought them downtown because it made it easier. And the transportation system that was getting them to the businesses and to the restaurants just performed in an exceptionally well manner. So it's just an idea. It does work. It is very successful. The businesses are going to be felt regardless of how we work it out, as well as the restaurants. So anything the city can do to help us along certainly would be a lot better.
And Harvey, thank you. And I look forward to, Harvey has properties in West Palm Beach, which has a mobility system and a variety of things that have worked fairly well. So I look forward to your thoughts and ideas from there as we go forward. Thanks. Kathy Davis.
Hello.
I have a question that has been put forth by my agents that have monthly parking passes in the garage. Right now, they have the ability to park in the garage, run in, grab a contract, run out, make copies, do all those sorts of things, which if they have to park now at GOTS and they still have to pay the regular price at GOTS, that means a lot of delay in their day and really interrupts their ability to act and get their jobs done. Would you consider giving these type of employees a parking permit that would allow them to park in the residential area or on Main Street or any of the streets for free, since they're already paying their monthly fee for the garage, so that they could have the opportunity to run in and out when necessary?
So since everybody else is quiet, I will start. And I understand your perspective, and what we may need to do is sit down and see if there are any ways to address it. I can tell you one way that would not go forward, and that is parking in the residential neighborhoods. The residents are not rightfully, but the residents are concerned, and we're working with the residents to try and give them priority for their streets. But beyond that, there are several things going on. GOTS is about, I don't know, what is GOTS? An 8 to 10 minute walk. And we'll have the little trolley. So we should probably sit down, Kathy, over the next month or so and look at what we have and see what options there are for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Real quick, this is John Kemp. I was just going to say, today folks can park on streets, non-metered streets downtown, i.e. in residential districts, for under 2 hours. So if someone's running in and out, you can do that today.
Right, we do. Thank you.
And then Ron George. And then after that, Joanne, if you're still on, I'd like you to share with everybody the comments you've been sharing with Hope and with me. So Ron George. Do we have Ron unmuted?
He is currently muted.
Can we unmute Ron?
I can only ask him to unmute.
Ron, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, first of all, I want to thank everybody. This is tremendous, all the work you've put into it. You've answered a lot of concerns that there were from past ideas and projects that people have had. So I'd hate to, after all the beautiful things I want to talk about that you did, I have to mention a couple concerns because that's
Sure.
what this is about. So
Would be disappointed otherwise, Ron.
Yeah. One concern is that we've slowly lost the view from Upper Main Street of the water as some trees have grown up. And I see in the drawings trees everywhere, which I love trees, but we lose a beautiful, beautiful view that is so important, I think, to the town up here. So just to think about that, think about if there's a way to bring that about and still have trees. So that's important. The other thing is, so often in the past, when people have talked about the garage, they begin to think of all the businesses as if we're at the mall and people are willing to park and walk a long ways. When people have, and I've said this before, I just want to go over it and make sure that there will be on-street parking available, which we need on Upper Main Street for the quick in and out people, whether it's a jewelry repair or a watch battery or drop off a watch. Or the gentleman that wants to come, leave work early and come and get a gift for his wife. I get that a lot. They sneak in. They don't want the wife to miss them or wonder what's taking them so long to get home, and things like that. So I just want to make sure that the parking on the street is also an important thing. It gets brushed off, but we lose a lot of business and we'll lose many of our locally owned stores. My wife and I love visiting Charleston and Charlottesville and the towns up in Rhode Island and other places where you see a lot of locally owned businesses. People walk into my store and they love the fact that they can walk in any store and they're talking to the business owner. And they're people who really know and understand their business. So the gentlemen that want to come in and have something designed and made, we encourage to go to the garage. We're always setting up appointments with customers for things like that. We always give them a place to go and not to be on the street. But the quick in and out is an enormous part of businesses, for small businesses. And we do a lot of repair work, a lot of custom work, a lot of service work. And that often needs the quick in and out, as well as the people who need to run in and grab a gift. So I just want to know what your thoughts are on that. Will we still have some parking on Upper Main Street? Spoke to the mayor last year for December about making Upper Main Street 1 hour parking. And that helped all the businesses up here because most of these are locally owned businesses. They're not restaurants and things. And turning over helped us this Christmas. Whereas all the others, they were 3 hour parking and it was always people filling the spaces. So I just want to make sure that we will have that parking, maybe 1 hour parking or whatever, to keep that turnover going. The other thing it does, if somebody's looking for a space on Main Street, having that quick turnover helps them to park. They're not driving around 2 or 3 times to look for it and then they leave, because it is a longer hike, especially for older people. Many of my customers are older, parking at the garage and walking up when they have just one small item is very difficult. So stop there. But thank you again for all you've done. This is tremendous.
Thanks, Ron. One thing, and I'm going to turn this over to David Gerald, that I thought of while you were talking. Part of the marketing campaign could also stress that we are unique because we have all these locally owned businesses. And I think that that's a piece that we take for granted, but I think that's a piece that can get added into that marketing campaign.
Thank you. I was going to mention that when I looked at the screen before, but that, yes, that would help a
That
lot.
makes sense. And David, do you want to make a comment, either you or Mike Johnson, on the on-street parking?
Hello, David.
David?
Yeah, there'll be on-street parking. The issue, and maybe you didn't want to take this head on, but I think that you're alluding to is the parklets, the outside dining in the future. And that's a reality. So we have not established anything yet for the outside dining. But my expectation is that some of the on-street parking will be taken up as parklets for future outside dining. It'll be on a seasonal basis. It won't be year round except for market space. But That remains to be determined on how much the individual businesses want that type of outside dining. And how much they're willing to pay for it, because it's not going to be free going forward. It's been free during the emergency, but it's not going to be free. So they're going to have to lease those spaces. So it remains to be determined. We're working on a process for that. But it's still a work in progress at this time. But I fully expect that some of that will come back next year.
All right, David, I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're right. That would be a big part of it. I just hope that the need for a quick in and out and people parking and the elderly parking for this upper part of Main Street is so important. We've had a lot of stores. There was a time when there weren't many stores up this end because it was very difficult. And so we're all sensitive about that up here. I think the 1 hour is a good idea to keep that turning. I would be very careful about taking away more parking. It makes it very difficult for sales, for quick in and out. Quick in and out is very important in this type of business. You have, like I said, walk in any store, you're talking to the owners. They know their business. They know it. People like coming in to do that. I do get many people from out of town, from Northern Virginia for engagement rings and things. We always point to the garage. We always try to give people heads up and work for that. So just something to keep in mind. Thank you. Thank you for your answers.
Yeah, if I could just add one more thing, Eileen. So Ron, one of the suggestions we had at the marketing meeting just the other night was to give you all information on what's going to be available so you can put that out to all of your customers.
Yes.
Because, God's Garage is not really that much further, since you're partway up Main Street, not that much further than what Hillman Garage is. So, if you would be so kind, and everybody else would be so kind, as to let your customers know during this 14 months that we're going to be under construction, that Gott's Garage will be the place to go, the closest garage to Main Street. I think that would be very helpful.
Yes, we have a Christmas mailing going out, and we also want to have even a second one mainly on the parking. So thank you.
Great. Joanne and then Robert Law.
Hey, I'm Joanne Vaughn. I'm Executive Director at Maryland Federation of Art, and we have Circle Gallery on State Circle. And actually, Ron and David just set me up for a perfect segue. The more information we can get, so if the merchants and the nonprofits, I'm a nonprofit, can get information that we can put on our website, that we can send out to the people who we know are going to be coming. I'm in a situation where we'll have a 3-day turnaround on an exhibition where we might have 60 artists either dropping off work or picking up work in a really short period of time. And so the more complete information, think about a whole campaign of what we are supposed to tell our customers and our stakeholders. And if it's the same, so if every merchant gets, a media packet, that we can then put this on our website, we can send this in an email, here's the language you want us to use. I used to be a journalist, and I know the more consistent the message, the more it will be remembered. So that if a customer goes on our website, they see the same thing on Ron's website or on anybody else's website, on the city's website, on the parking website. So it all sort of is packaged the same and looks the same. Then not only does that help reinforce the message, it makes all of us look like we have our act together. So I too am very excited about this. I was on the City Doc Action Committee, and I applaud so much the whole group for finally taking a step to get all this done. I live right behind St. Mary's, so my access to work is my 7-minute walking commute is going to be impeded because I won't be able to cut through the garage. But it's going to be a pain for all of us at different times. But the more we can work together to make sure that our customers and our stakeholders know what's going on and that they aren't frustrated, then the better the outcome is going to be after we work our way through this.
Oh, terrific. Thank you so much. And I think one of our next steps will be getting together with the merchants so that you can put messaging out. I think we're going to look for a handful of volunteers. I know Constance and Steve Samaras and have volunteered. I know Debbie worked with us last month, but volunteers to help get the kind of information that you need for your own messaging. And now we have a question from Robert Law, then John, then Marty.
Hi, my name's Bob Longer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I struggle with that technology. I'm with Uncle Bob's Fudge Kitchen on Lower Main Street for a little over 30 years now. I have some passes and I have some passes for some staff members. Do we just continue to make the payments to the same address? And does that pass now allow my staff to park in any parking garage? And is the fee the same? I guess those are my three concerns for myself and my staff.
Would John Kemp be the person, David, to answer that question? John? Is John there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. So you have monthly parking passes at Hillman?
Yes.
Okay. So the answer is your folks will get, there'll be some communication directly to account holders such as yourself as to where folks are going to go. And the rates at the other locations are not the same as Hillman, but they're less. They're less.
I lost you.
Yeah, but all the same, but we'll handle the account transfer and all that sort of stuff with minimal disruption or none.
Does that answer your question? Mr. Law, does that answer your question?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I lost audio on my end.
So John, why don't you restate what you're going to do? John, you're on mute.
Yeah, the monthly parking accounts will be contacted with their individual plans as to where they're going to go as far as it being GOTS or night and garage. And yes, we'll be able to handle that account transfer. The rates are less at the other locations compared to Hillman, but there'll be minimal disruption or admin work on your part.
Yeah, and the other part, Mr. Law, is that you will be able to return to the new Hillman and be assured that you'll have monthly passes for the new garage as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We have John, Jon.
Yeah. I'm the manager at Hillman's of Annapolis. And I was curious about, I saw this in the in one of the slides, but I didn't have the full information on it, and maybe I missed it. Is there going to be a public restroom at the new Hillman garage?
Bryce?
Yes, I believe there will be. We were asked to include that. I forget now if it's the Planning Commission or HPC, but I thought it was a great, Planning Commission. I think it's a great recommendation. And so we have planned for that. We need to make sure it's going to fit in the final scope of work and budget, of course, but we've got 2 restrooms currently shown on the plan. Yes.
Great. I just want to vocalize my support and of that, because we have a lot of people who, come in and around our store looking for public restrooms. And I know that there are a lot of stores around here that don't offer that or don't have the ability to offer that. So just wanted to put my 2 cents out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Marty.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Just one comment. Also reflecting from the messaging, the really great messaging meeting 2 nights ago, I never seem to hear Visit Annapolis mentioned. They have tons of marketing money, and they can be a great channel to help you get the word out, help bring everybody to reinforce the message to come downtown. So just please reach out to Kristen and the whole team, because I think they can be a great supplement to getting the word out on everything.
Marty, we agree completely. David?
Yeah, I was going to say that too, Marty. They're 100% on board. In fact, Kristen was at the meeting. I don't know if you saw her or not, but she was at the meeting. So we definitely are going to rely on them to help us with this. They're a great resource for us on this whole plan.
Yep, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I'm looking, I don't see any other hands. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Let me ask if the city manager or Ellie, if anyone would like to make any comments before we close. Lisa.
I just want to thank everybody again for your participation, for your great questions. If anything comes up in the interim before the next meeting, please feed them to us, to Eileen or myself or anybody on the team. We'd love to get your input.
Thanks. And Lisa has a comment.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm an engineer in public works, and myself and Steve Rice, who's the economic development manager for the city, are chairing a loading zone working group to work with the businesses in terms of their deliveries. One comment I wanted to make with respect to Mr. George's concern about parking for short-term in and out. Part of this loading zone rework that we're looking at is providing ample parking in the mornings for the larger delivery trucks to get in and out, because we found many of them are delivering to the same shops, but they have to come in and out of town for different delivery times. We're working with restaurant owners and other business owners. If you haven't been contacted, please reach out. I'm in Public Works and Steve Rice is in Planning and Zoning. But then we're also looking for smaller loading zones that would be throughout the city to allow, because a lot of smaller deliveries to the little boutique type shops that get their deliveries from FedEx, or offices that, maybe from Staples, or even curbside pickup for your customers. So Mr. George, we're looking to have some spots up and down Main Street throughout the day that would be available for either small delivery trucks or customer very short-term parking.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Ellie?
Yeah, just very quickly, Eileen, I don't know if I'm looking at the participants list, but I don't know if there's any other way. I just want to make sure that Maryland Avenue is well represented. I wish they could raise their hands or something, but maybe Joe or you, we can talk
Eric
offline
is on the call. Just so everybody knows, Economic Development Office, Eric Evans and Joe Rubino are all a major part of getting the messages out to all of you. Eric, do you have, when you send your messages out, on which we so appreciate, do you have Maryland Avenue people in your listings? Eric Evans.
Oh, Hope just emailed me and said that they were all invited. So
yes,
yeah.
Eric.
Yes, Eileen. I have over 1,000 people on my email list. That includes Maryland Avenue, West Street, as well as the Main Street and City Dock area. So I share that via email and social media.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So all of you know, the City Dock Hillman Garage, we have our City Dock Action Committee list, but in terms of getting out to all of you, it's essential that we use the partnership, we use the Economic Development Office, and then, people like Joe as well. Well, it's pretty exciting, isn't it? We're actually going to do this. Here we are, less than a year, and we now got basically just slightly more than 2 months. So we got lots of stuff to do. So any questions, call, and we will need to be getting together with several of you as we coordinate both the messaging and also provide more information to you on the parking and mobility. Thank you, everybody. Terrific. Bye.